Welcome to our latest Twitter Spaces. Today I'm joined by Senior SEO Manager Lewis and the wonderful Lidia from BigCommerce, and we'll be talking about SEO strategy in 2022. So the last 2 years have been a crazy time in general, and this year we've seen probably more major Google updates than what we've seen in 1 year ever before. So we'll be taking a closer look at what businesses really need to be doing with their SEO strategies moving into the new year, what kind of things they need to be prioritizing, any particular trends they need to be keeping an eye on, and all of these different things. So let's jump in with the first question. What should businesses be prioritizing in 2022 when it comes to their SEO strategy?
Yeah, I can start with that one. I think all the fundamentals will obviously still be very similar in terms of definitely prioritizing the content, the link building, the authority of the websites, and obviously tech SEO as well, majorly. I think some of the other things that are becoming more and more popular, things like Cloudflare as well, also or that have been important for a long time, really, but something that more and more people are relying on and integrating within their websites and campaigns, which I think something that's going to continue to grow. To be honest, I think site security is going to be something potentially in the future that has a bigger impact on SEO as it currently does, and obviously Cloudflare as well as a lot of other things, but definitely assists with that. So I think that's something that's going to start playing a bigger part in people's sort of SEO campaigns, but definitely obviously still the fundamentals and sort of user intent within the content as well.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. I would say what needs to be prioritized rather than what's the next big thing has to be the fundamentals and strategy and consistency. And what I mean by that is we tend to get a little bit carried away with the next big thing and with whatever's exciting, whatever's new. But it is consistency that's gotten us SEO wins in the long term, and putting out great content that's going to satisfy users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a really good example of that. Sorry, Lidia.
Sorry. Sometimes my phone goes to sleep and it kicks me out of Spaces.
No, it's fine.
Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say
no, it's fine.
being able to tell exactly where your quick wins are going to be is super key. So just look at what your competitors are doing. I know I keep talking about this all the time. If you follow me on Twitter or you've seen me speak before, but do your gap analysis and understand what you need to work on to be able to outrank them.
Definitely. I think that like Lydia was saying, there are a lot of new things coming into place, and a lot of them are going to be important as well. But in terms of what Google's doing, it's right in front of you in terms of what it's ranking well for what you're looking to target. So focusing on what's ranking well, why it's ranking well for that particular reason, and then trying to improve on that is obviously still going to be the main way that you're going to help sort of take advantage of them quick wins and focus on them areas that you need to be improving.
Yeah, I think touching on what both of you have said about like not getting too carried away with the next big thing, I think a really big example of that is voice search. I think everyone at one stage or another, whether it was 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, was like, voice search is the next big thing. It's the next big thing. It's the next big thing. And yeah, just trying not to get too carried away with that is definitely the most important part.
That really is the perfect example. Voice search. Oh my God. Yeah. Let's not get into it.
Oh no, I don't want to. So when we're looking at priorities then, does that depend on the size of the business? So should a small SME focus on something different to maybe what a large scale e-commerce website should? How should different size businesses and different maybe types of businesses prioritize?
I think they're all going to sort of have similar goals in terms of all businesses' goals are going to be effectively to improve the return on investment, whether that's through direct revenue through the website or whether that's through sort of inquiries leading to revenue for the business. They're all going to have similar goals, but in terms of the size of the business, it's going to depend on what them goals should be and how you're going to achieve them goals. For example, obviously, if it's a slightly smaller client, or the website's brand new and it's not really had a chance to be ranked and indexed on Google, then you're probably not going to be starting to target them, 100,000 search volume keywords straight away, because realistically you're not going to rank for them straight away, and you're not going to be achieving the results from them. So it's about user intent in that sort of sense of the word, and making sure that you're targeting realistic keywords and putting your strategy around things that are actually going to be able to work for that client. So it does depend on the size of the business in terms of that, but obviously all businesses goals are going to be similar in terms of achieving that return on investment from obviously the SEO campaign. So yeah, I think it's pretty similar for them, but obviously it's going to be a different strategy for the size of the business.
Yeah, I agree. I think rather than having to do with the size of the business itself, it has to do with the way that it earns money. So if, for example, I used to work for a publisher a while back, so volume was all we cared about. Volume of visits, increasing page views. So we would target exactly the type of searches that were easy to rank for, that would carry a lot of volume, and then a clustered content cluster strategy was really helpful for us because it helped us create this accelerating growth on search. But then when you move to a different space, for example, I used to work in SaaS a while back. I work in SaaS again, and we had a really tiny search market. So there was no point at all in going um, towards volume or caring about competing with stronger players than us. It was more about how SEO could integrate with content marketing and with CRO to make the most of the volume we were getting, and find the right next, nurture the demand and work in demand generation as well. So it really depends on the market that you're targeting and the type of business that you have.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. I think for me, in terms of priority, it's not always just is it technical, is it content, is it offsite, or any of that. It's more like the priority is user intent. Like, what are your users looking for? And then how do I best strategize around achieving that end goal?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think that's much to do with the size of the business. Exactly, more their goals in terms of the actual physical size of the business. But yeah, definitely agree.
Cool. So we spoke a little bit about like not getting too carried away with trends, but what are set to be some of the biggest trends in 2022 from kind of research and things that have come out recently?
Voice search. No, I'm just joking. But I think the one of the bigger ones is sort of edge SEO, which a lot of people are talking about. Um, I'm not sure yet in 2022 how much of an impact it's going to have. Looks like a little bit at least, but we'll have to sort of wait and see with that one. I think that's one of the biggest ones, as I mentioned earlier. Although it's already massive and everyone's using it, I think more and more people will start using Cloudflare and start taking a little bit more sort of benefit from external tools such as Cloudflare, and then as well as that, just focusing more and more on EAT. I think that's going to take more of an impact on Google's algorithm. It already does take a big impact, but I think that's going to play even more of a part as time goes on. So I think that's going to be a big trend in 2022. People focusing on that a little bit more, not necessarily just within like reviews, but within how the content's written, sort of long form content, things like that as well, and having a little bit more of an impact in terms of Google's algorithm in 2022. But yeah, it's very hard to predict the trends until they come out, really. But I'd say some of them are going to be sort of big parts in 2022.
I think we're going to be seeing lots of SEO testing. Some people have been working in the industry for a while and they're ready to move on from the fundamentals into cooler stuff. And there's a bunch of the more mainstream tools have been offering some SEO forecasting. So if
Yeah.
you can do some SEO forecasting, then divide your pages into control and test group, and make some changes and see how you're going or below the forecast, you're going to be finding a lot of value in there. So I think SEO testing is something that is properly coming into the industry in 2022. I don't know, I might have to swallow my words a year from now, but I do genuinely think this. And something that's a little bit scary to talk about is AI generated content.
Yeah.
We've gone from really actually crap content being created by AIs and different automation systems to actually some pretty decent stuff, where you struggle to tell it apart from something that a person could have written. And this could potentially take off a bunch of workload of SEOs if done correctly, where when tackling meta descriptions or titles, or some brave people will want to do product descriptions with this. But I think that's something that we're going to see a lot of in 2022.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of talks about that recently, using tools like Jarvis AI and a number of other different ones all out there. And it's something we've tested ourselves as well, just kind of seeing what happens and like how good it is, particularly looking at things like the meta descriptions. We want to make sure that they're click-through rate optimized and we've got keywords in there and things like that. But like, what can these tools actually offer? And I think it's something that the more AI develops and the more machine learning develops over time, it's going to keep being a big part of that, just to help alleviate workloads for some of those more I don't know, generic tasks, especially for massive e-commerce sites. Like, who's going to want to sit there and write 10,000 meta descriptions, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've actually tried Jarvis and I was quite surprised with the quality of the output. And with different e-commerce models coming on, omni-channel and marketplaces being quite a leader in 2020 and 2021, this should really streamline the work and improve the ROI of this business model. So I think we're going to see it. It is a little bit terrifying because content and that type of micro content optimization has been a big part of. So yeah, we're going to keep saying that SEO is not dead and keep hoping that we're right for many years.
Definitely. So we actually have a speaker request come in from Azim. Let me add him in. Hopefully that connects. Hello, Azim. Azim, you're on mute. Nope, not sure what's happening there. Hopefully you can join us in a second and ask his question. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about Edge SEO then. So Lewis, it's something you brought up. Tell us a little bit more about it, what it is, and kind of what role will that have to play in SEO strategy moving forward?
Yeah, I'll let Lydia go first for this one because I've taken the lead on most of them, and then I'll follow on from that.
Oh no, this is the one where you can absolutely take the lead on because I am not great at Edge SEO. It's something that I'm super interested to see, and I hope you are both right and it becomes a big trend in 2022 and I can learn about it a lot. But yeah, keen to see what you have to say.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so again, I need to learn more about it myself as well. But I do know a little bit about it. Whether it's gonna play as big of a part in 2022, I think it will have a part in it, but we'll have to wait and see. But what I think it will do at least is make it a little bit easier to implement some of the sort of vital technical components that we rely a lot on developers for at the moment. I think that obviously you're still going to need a little bit of developer assistance when relying on it, in terms of making sure that there's no conflictions, nothing breaks, but using sort of external tools to be able to implement sort of these more technical errors that we, like I say, would rely on developers for now, is obviously going to speed up processes and be massively beneficial. I also think it's going to help improve sort of the security of websites as well, which I did say previously. I think is going to become more and more of a part of SEO. Obviously, it is already, but I think in the future that's going to be a bigger case in terms of Google's algorithm. So I do think that that's going to be beneficial beneficial as well, but also it's going to sort of allow, less bandwidth with a lot of the changes that are being made. So it potentially is going to have some sort of site speed improvements by using sort of edge SEO and going down the route of that as well. But like I say, to be fair, I need to do slightly more research into it myself as well to be able to see how beneficial it's going to be in 2022. Obviously, it's not so much a thing of yet, and it's definitely going to be something that a lot more people are looking into in terms of its growth and how beneficial it is going to be. But I think it will play a part, at least in 2022, and people are going to hear a lot more about it. Obviously, it's growing already and a lot of people are talking about it, but I don't think that it's quite there yet in terms of the benefits being seen, at least in campaigns. But more to come from it, I think, over the next sort of couple of months or so.
Yeah, definitely. I think people have been talking about Edge for a really long time. Dan Taylor from Salt did a really great article with Content King. I want to say it was even last year or maybe even 2019. And he was talking about how with SEO, obviously, it's not one-to-one with ROI. It takes kind of 6 months, maybe longer, obviously, in some circumstances, in order to get that ROI starting to come in, let alone kind of really matching up with the investment that's being made. But a lot of the time we're struggling with critical changes that we can't make because we're relying on that development time and we can't get that resource, or we just the SEO versus developer situation, which we all love and enjoy. But Edge can be really, really help with that in terms of just making some of those changes, everything from kind of content injection, JavaScript, even just meta descriptions. I think Aleda did some work using Cloudflare and writing a bunch of meta descriptions and getting them all uploaded via Cloudflare as well. So yeah, there's lots to learn and lots to kind of hear about with Edge SEO over the next year or so, definitely. So let's talk a little bit more then about data and analytics. I think, Lydia, you touched on this earlier, looking at kind of forecasts and all of these different side of things. How much of a role will data and analytics play when it comes to deciding priorities for SEO strategy?
It's taken more and more of a role in the last few years, but it's just a data-driven strategy is a no-brainer right now. I feel like most of us are going to be driving in that direction. And on that note, something that I've been working on, because I'm working on internationalization at the moment, in order to identify what our users might want or what they where they convert best. I've been doing some data work to decide what the content strategy is going to be worldwide for BigCommerce. And it's been quite interesting. I am going to be onboarding at some point someone to help with analytics to tag our content based on intent, main topics, and where in the funnel of awareness our user is, to understand where we're getting the most return in every possible dimension. And I think the more confident you are that the shot that you're shooting is going to reach the target, the better that you're going to be able to ask for resources and get what you need out of your leadership team in order to make SEO really shine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I do also think at the very beginning of a campaign, data is extremely important, but I do also think that it's important to have the conversation with the client you're working with, make sure sort of what routes they're looking to go down as well, because sometimes in that case it can be misleading. You may see certain areas of a site performing really well or poorly, but I think it's also important to get an understanding of there may be hidden reasons behind that in terms of that not being the key search area they're looking to target, because the data might tell you something slightly different in terms of that. But once you've got that information, I think a data-driven strategy is 100% the way to go. It tells you a lot of sort of things in terms of, like Lydia was saying, the performance of certain areas, and also gives you insights into sort of changes that you can be making to help improve in them areas, and improve sort of conversion rates of areas, as well as obviously the performance in terms of SERP. So yeah, I think it's extremely important, but having that initial conversation just to understand sort of the key target areas is also going to be important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just overall, SEO is not necessarily easier now, but we have so much more data and so many more numbers to play with that we can make much more informed decisions, possibly more than we ever did before. But as you say, Lewis, I mean, making sure the data's clean and we're not just looking at it like, oh yeah, this data is definitely all 100% right, and they've had a duplicate tracking script on their website, or something's conflicting, or anything crazy like that, which we see more often than not before we start using that data. So there's a lot that we could be doing with it, that's for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I've recently encountered an issue where all of my conversions were multiples of 22. And yeah, I had to go to an analyst for it because that made absolutely no sense.
Wow. Do I want to know what they did to make that happen?
I'll text you later.
Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about digital PR, because we know that digital PR, the authority, link building side of things, it does tie into SEO quite nicely. And as a strategy for digital marketing as a whole, it's boomed this past year, over the past 2 years. But what does that look like moving into 2022?
For SEO, I think in terms of their integrated approach, I think it's massive, and it will get bigger. I think clients and businesses in general are noticing the impact after they've moved to that integrated sort of way of doing SEO alongside PR. Obviously, the PR is more going to be based around obviously authority and obviously brand awareness as well. But playing them sort of side by side is I mean, we've seen the results from it with a lot of our clients, and I think that as they are moving into sort of, like I say, the integrated approach, they're seeing the impact of it on their end as well. So I can only see that growing really in 2022 and moving forward. Obviously, it's something relatively new on our end, but already from working on them integrated campaigns, I've seen some of the results that they've performed and we've achieved through that. So I can only see that growing really.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very evolving industry, and my guesses for what we are going to see in 2022 in the world of digital PR are going to be better data. I feel like we've been getting away with data that was only so-so for a bit, and now journalists are catching up with us, and they're going to be requiring better studies. I think more campaigns are going to be a lot more global instead of working with just one country and then trying to reproduce this study that you've done in English and send it across different countries. They're going to have a more global approach. Um, I do think there's going to be a lot of work with demand generation where we're going to leverage digital PR in order to increase demand for specific products, as well as improve our rankings. And I really believe that as part of this, as the journalism industry catches up with the way that the PR industry has changed, we're going to have to do a lot more targeted outreach, and it's not going to be possible to land tens of links or hundreds of links by casting a very wide net. It's going to have to be a lot more personalized.
Yeah, I think hyper niching SEO, hyper niching PR, that's the way forward. Just because everything's getting so saturated now, you've got to think how extensive the web is, looking at just generally, like you say, with the journalists, all the publications. There's only so many journalists, and sending out the same press releases to everyone isn't necessarily going to land. People want personalized experiences on the web, whether that's SEO, whether that's in terms of the keywords they're searching and the results that are coming up, or what they're reading. It's all of that different elements that we need to take into consideration with all strategies, I think, across digital marketing.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Okay, so my last question then in terms of what Google's doing. So Google's starting to automate more and more. We're looking at meta descriptions, which they've been automating for a while now, page titles, there's more snippets, there's more on the SERP features. How can businesses really use this to their advantage moving into next year?
I think Google's giving you a very clear roadmap when you analyze in bulk the changes they're making to titles and meta descriptions. You can really infer what they mean when they mean quality and what they think is going to meet the user intent. So I do think, even though we've seen quite spectacular fails on Google's side on this title rewriting, I do think we can get a lot of information from it, and we what we do to what Google has been telling us is the right thing to do. Um, in terms of where it's going, we've seen through the years an enrichment of the SERPs and more and more searches that don't end on a click, that just get satisfied in the very same Google SERPs. And there are many different opinions around whether this is good or bad, what this means, and how businesses should leverage this. Um, I quite agree with something that Izzy Smith said a few years ago during a Brighton SEO conference. Um, Helping users on the SERPs, even if they don't land you a click, can be good for your brand awareness. And if the user did not need to click anyway, maybe that's okay. They can end up finding you for other reasons. And in a cookieless world, um, before we started talking about removing cookies and so on, many PPC experts would tell you that that was depriving them of understanding the audience better or being able to target the audience better. But it is an argument that fades in importance in 2022. So I think we're going to see Google going this very same direction of optimization and zero-click searches. And we're going to have to rethink a lot of things from the marketing and content marketing industry in order to respond to that in a way that's effective and beneficial for our clients or businesses.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the moment, obviously, like Lydia was saying, they're giving you a roadmap and they're trying to tell you what they prefer in terms of sort of the metadata that they are automating. I've seen it more and more in the last year, really, for things being automated. But I think it does also help in terms of looking at what similarities between the metadata that it is displaying around them areas does give you a bit of insight about what they're looking for, and obviously you can sort of infer there why they're looking for that sort of area, and build around that in terms of the strategy that you're obviously producing. So I think there are definitely benefits from it, but sometimes I do see things be automated and me look at it and just like, why have you done that? It doesn't make sense. So I don't think it's quite there yet, to be honest, in terms of the algorithm. I think there's a lot more to come from that. I think it will get better over time, but yeah, sometimes it's not always as accurate as it could be at the moment. But I think in a lot of circumstances, it does help you get an idea of, like I say, what they're looking for, and potentially give you an idea of what you should be doing with sort of that metadata around that topic. So yeah.
Okay, so I did say that was my last question, but you guys have triggered something. So with the on the SERP features then, particularly map listings, we're seeing more of them. They're much more prominent. They're more kind of map listings within the map listings on search results now as well. Is that meaning that local SEO is going to be a bigger thing? Is that something people should prioritize more?
It's something we've seen grown for a bit now as well. Um, I'm really not sure. It's going to be localized results are definitely going to be a thing, but map listings not necessarily, in my opinion. Um, and I'm also not a local SEO expert, but I have seen some people create excellent resources. I can't remember the name of this person, but I'll find it and tweet it later. They created an article about how local SEO was not just for small businesses or brick and mortar businesses. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think local SEO, people are realizing, I mean, the conversion rates around it are normally a lot higher. So I think a lot of people are going to sort of go to that upon obviously the more niche sort of keywords as well when focusing on an SEO campaign. In terms of maps, I think potentially it will grow, but it's a bit of a difficult one really. I think there is a bit of movement in terms of what I've seen over the last year or so with sort of map listings and things like that, but I couldn't say whether it's going to be more prominent in the next year in terms of 2022 or not. I think it's sang a little bit more down the line than that.
Oh, so are there any other top tips for businesses that they should consider when it comes to their SEO strategy in next year?
I would say stop measuring keyword rankings and measure based on topics, because otherwise you'll be chasing wildly after specific rank changes. Just don't panic. Google's going to be testing a lot of things. A lot of things are going to be going on. Your rankings are going to go up and down for specific keywords. As long as your revenue and general traffic stays steady, keep being consistent with your strategy, because you might just be seeing a bit of a glitch rather than a direction.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that one better myself, to be honest. I completely agree with that one. So, yeah, I think a lot of the time people do focus on like a specific keyword. There's a lot of other variants that page is ranking for, and that page might even be seeing more traffic than it was previously. But because they've seen a decline in positioning for one certain keyword, they try to change it up or update the content, things like that. And there's really no need to. So, I do completely agree with that in terms of your strategy for 2022 in terms of the topics and the page performance rather than individual keyword positioning.
Yeah, nothing winds me up more than people are like, but where's this keyword? It's like, but look at all of this traffic and all this revenue. They're like, yeah, but what about this keyword?
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
unbelievable.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for joining today. There's been lots of really great insights. Lydia, I know you said you was going to share some articles on your Twitter after this, and that would be amazing. That's it for this SEO strategy in 2022 Twitter space. Keep an eye on our socials for our next one.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. This was fun.
It was. Take care, both, and see you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye.